30,000 deaths because nobody made a proper counting, as a cascading thing. So what would have been different if that weather service will convert that precipitation amount into impact-based, into flooding, into potential danger of landslides, and so that was missing, and that's what our team jointly with WMO is developing now, is supporting. Next slide, please. At the same time, one of the main messages which I want to pass you: science technology is extremely important, but without entities, qualified entities, which know how to use that on the ground in a particular country, it is very often impossible to use that science and technology. And this image is it's many countries which I unfortunately visiting in Africa specifically, sometimes in South Asia and others. That's what I can see in many of meteorological agencies. For instance, the graphic on the left side, when you see, like, reduction of this, it's a number of stations, hydrological stations in Angola over the years. So it's not just meteo, it's also hydrology which is suffering in many countries. So my point here is strengthening public institutions responsible for this area is one of the key drivers for the World Bank support in the hydromet area. Next, please. Finally, some of our activities which are relevant to this topic. One of the recent developments is a very active introduction of private sector in this area. Everybody has, our gadgets. We see weather forecasts on this, be it weather or IBM or some other big players, and sometimes this big or not so big companies are sending multiple warnings, which sometimes contradict each other. So there is no authoritative voice, and there is sometimes in many countries this tension between official national meteorological services and private sector. So to minimize that tension, jointly with WMO and private sector organizations, it was decided to create Global Weather Enterprise, which is a three-party forum, if you will. Third party is academia, because a lot of developments in this sector are based on the science. So this is one of the areas where we work together with our partners. Another one is improving of support from developing partners. There are quite a lot of different initiatives supported by different donors, but they're overlapping. They're always missing points of how to integrate various activities on the national basis. So to minimize that inefficiency, joint WMO in the recent second Developing Partners Conference, we suggested to build alliance for hydromet development. And besides WMO and World Bank, we also expect that the third party, GCF, Green Climate Fund, will be another kind of building partner of these initiatives. So with that, I will stop here. I'm within 7 minutes, so I would be happy to respond to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Vladimir, for giving us a very concrete example of collaboration between the World Bank and the UN, which we talk about a lot, and it's really good to see how that's actually coming together for implementation. But also, I think your point about strengthening public institutions and that being key, and in terms of managing information, in terms of skilling up communities and populations to respond and to know what to do with that information is really important too. I also liked seeing some examples of the software and the technology that's actually being used, and I myself have participated in an open street mapping workshop in Indonesia, actually, to map public buildings in communities. So our final panelist that we're going to hear from is Deputy Commissioner Christina Farrell from the New York City, and you have the floor.
Thank you. Hello, thank you for having me here today. My name is Christina Farrell. I work at New York City Emergency Management. This is a city agency, so my focus is much, much more local than everyone else here. We're an agency of about 250 staff members, and we're tasked with coordinating planning, public education, response, and messaging for emergencies that occur within the 5 boroughs of New York City. First, I wanted to speak for 1 minute about the preparedness work that we do to try to prepare the city's residents, commuters, and guests before any emergencies happen. And then I will talk briefly about how we message during and after emergencies. So as anyone who's spent any amount of time in the city knows, there are all types of emergencies, just like there are in large cities all over the world. Both notice events, such as a hurricane or a blizzard, and then no notice events, which could be a power outage, tornado, or other things like that that just happen very suddenly or with very short notice. To teach people about what hazards are faced in New York City and how people can prepare and be ready for these, we do about 900 presentations a year using our staff, and we also have a very robust volunteer corps that we train that go out to give these presentations. We give them to schools, civic associations, seniors, centers, businesses, things like that. We also have done a lot of work with the various consulates in the city to work with their staff and for other groups. We also, as you can imagine, give a lot of tours of the city's Emergency Operations Center, which is located in Brooklyn and is activated whenever there are emergencies, and we're happy to open that up to guests from around the world. We also do a lot of advertising. So people in their daily commute, while they're watching TV, browsing online, can get some awareness about emergencies. We do a large advertising campaign with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, and the Ad Council that has billboard, TV, radio, bus shelters, and online presence. And then we also do a large hurricane preparedness campaign every hurricane season. The Atlantic hurricane season for 2018 just started last Friday, June 1st, incredibly, and will run through November 30th, although hurricanes are more frequent in the city beginning in August and running through September and October. About 3 million of the 8 million residents who live in New York City are in a hurricane evacuation zone, and that number, due to climate change and other factors, population growth, is increasing. So, and as we saw during Hurricane Sandy, New Yorkers can be greatly affected by this. So, we really put a lot into advertising and education. We also have a robust social media presence. We're very active on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. We do a weekly newsletter that we send to 5,000 organizations, talking about preparedness, inviting them to events, and sharing resources. And we've also created a Ready New York app that's on Apple and Android devices. And we have created our own superhero, Ready Girl, who is very popular. She did a comic book with some superheroes, and she talks to a lot